Welcome to the Horror Script Podcast.
And welcome back to another special edition of the Horror Script Podcast. Not just audio today, we are going to be doing video. We are doing a special interview with one of the original directors of the movie formerly known as Twisted Souls, which is called Spookies. It's me and Rich with our guest, Brendan Faulkner.
And Robin Faulkner.
And Robin Faulkner.
All right. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate the acceptance of our invite. And we would love for you guys to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your horror background and how you got into directing.
Well, I've always been a fan of horror since I was a little kid. My mother was actually extremely into horror. She loved every horror movie, read all the books. As a matter of fact, my father says that the way I turned out is because when the movie The Thing came back to play in the theaters, she wanted to go see it, and she was pregnant with me, and he said, "Do not go to that movie. Do not go to it." But they used to show movies during the day, so she jumped on the bus, went downtown, and saw the movie. And later, when she finally told him, she said, he turned around and said, "That's why he's the way he is. She traumatized him in the womb." And I just been, I've been a fan. My side business has always been vintage popular poster sales and pulp magazines like Weird Tales and horror comics, the ECs and all that. And I grew up with them and collected them and sold them. And I've always been into horror movies. I used to sneak out at night because they used to show a lot of the horror movies on the Late Show, and my mother would be up to watch them. So I'd find a spot where I could see the screen, and I'd watch it. That's how I saw it. I thought they looked really strange when I didn't have banisters between me.
Did you have a favorite?
Between me and when I was a kid, I loved all the Universal stuff. That was one of my favorites. And then, later on when I was going to the theater and that, some of the AIT stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah, the universe, the monsters. It was what was it? The King Kong and the Wolfman and
Frankenstein's monster.
Frankenstein's monster. Yeah.
When I grew up in the 50s into the 60s, I grew up in the New York area, and Channel 9 used to love the show King Kong. And on Thanksgiving Day or on Christmas Day, they'd do Christmas with the Kongs, and they'd show both of them in a row. And my father was always, "Oh no, we're going to have to watch King Kong again."
Right. That's so cool. So Robin, you're very big in the horror as well, right?
Oh, I used to have to fight my brothers on Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning, to be able to watch the horror movies the classic monster movies. And they wanted to watch football or baseball or basketball. So I wound up actually saving my allowance. I could buy my own TVs, so I didn't have to deal with them.
So it's funny how this whole group of people, this industry in these just everyone just loves horror, and how everybody has their own unique story, and it's fascinating. I love just hearing about how everybody just started getting into it. So it's great.
For me, it wasn't just comic books and magazines and science fiction.
And what actually started me in making movies was actually a fellow who's still around today, Donald Glut. Donald Glut used to make these little, you know, short little horror movies and sci-fi movies, and they were always in the monster magazines. He always had pictures from his version of Dracula or Frankenstein or the Mummy or one of these, and I would say, wow, I want to do that. So I got myself an 8 millimeter camera. Tom Dorn, who co-directed Spookies with me, we grew up together, and we used to go out on a Saturday afternoon and film our own horror movies.
That's
Unfortunately, by
amazing.
accident, I threw away almost all of them when I moved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Imagine having them still. How amazing that would be.
Yeah, I only had one out of all the ones we shot.
That's all right. He also threw out all his plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should. You
Another
should. You should have it released or something, like a little special or something, a short.
Yeah, you put it as an Easter egg on something, you know.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So you studied at the School of Visual Arts under Roy Frumkes. Is that correct?
No, 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 no. I went to SUNY Purchase for a while, and Roy was teaching a class there. And the thing that he did, which was very different, he said, well, you know, just showing movies and talking about theory and that doesn't really give you the feel. So he put together this idea about us actually doing a movie. And Frank Farrell, who also on Spooky, um, we actually made an anthology film. It was never finished, but it was called Tales That Would Tear Your Heart Out. And this was done in around the mid '70s, and we shot like different episodes, and we had some. Al Kilgore was on it. Now, Al Kilgore was one of the kids that was Rocky and Bowling. We had, oh God, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. The man who wrote The Cat People was actually writing one of the little stories, which never got filmed. But we had Wes Craven direct an episode. And I actually have a photo somewhere of me shooting and Wes directing and his son standing beside us. But Wes Craven actually directed an episode of it. And that's the most complete, one of the most complete ones. But uh, that's where I went. I didn't go to the School of Visual Arts.
Do you know what that's going to do?
I know exactly where it's with Roy Frumkes that he keeps talking about. Well, we should do something with this footage. We should do something with it.
Yeah.
And so far, nothing's been done with it. It'll probably rot away.
So but that film is still out there.
Oh yeah, as far as I know, Roy has all the stuff. He has the negative. It was all shot on 16, and he has the negative. He has what positive prints. My episode was about maybe oh 10, 12 minutes complete. There's still a bunch of stuff to shoot. Frank's episode, I think, was almost complete. There was a fellow who worked on it, Ted Bonnet. He did one where um, Ed Sullivan comes back to life and goes back to like do his show. And we had the Will Jordan, who was the guy who actually created that whole thing with doing a Sullivan imitation where it's like really big shoe. He created the whole thing. He plays Ed Sullivan come back. We have Sullivan come out of the grave, and we actually go to the old Ed Sullivan Theater and we shoot there.
Oh, that's
With him
cool.
doing acts on stage. And he actually put it in a contest because his was actually complete. And I think he won an award for it. But, you know, there was a lot of stuff, you know, he said that was shot on that. But only the Ted Bonnet one, as far as I know, was absolutely complete. But it's still out there.
See, people have to, somebody has to get this and release it. The fans, the horror fans, want to see these things. This is lost footage that should be seen.
Well, not all of it is lost. The movie Dr. Butcher, Medical Deviant, which is, I think, Cannibal Holocaust for that. When it was brought here, this Aquarius releasing, which was run by a guy named Terry, he needed to put some footage in. So the opening shots of the movie are actually from my episode and Frank's episode.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
And so you can see a bit of it. And I think on the Blu-ray, they actually put a little bit more of the footage.
Well,
and I got
Miles, I'm sure you have that, don't you?
Huh? I have that, yeah.
I think Miles has it too, I'm sure.
Oh, the horror collection's always growing. Physical media, I much prefer physical media over streaming.
Yeah. But do you have the Blu-ray of the Hannibal Holocaust? That's what he's talking about?
Oh, yes, I do. They gave it to me. We did a thing at the Alamo Draft House a few years back, and they had Roy Fumpus there. Frank couldn't make it, and a couple of other people, and they actually showed the 35 millimeter print of Dr. Butcher, which was in terrible shape. It was like all red. But we spoke. As a matter of fact, that was the last time I spoke with about why don't we do something with this footage. And Roy was saying, "Oh yeah, you know, maybe if people really want to see it." That's what I've been saying for the last 25 years.
Oh well, we're gonna have to reach out to Roy and tell him to get on it.
He gave me the Blu-ray. That was my consolation prize. They gave me the Blu-ray.
Nice. Well, at least you got something, right?
Yeah.
So now after you did that class with Roy, was that when you got the offer to do Twisted Souls, or you wanted to work on something else, which is the rumor that's out there, but they asked you to do Twisted Souls?
Well, what happened was that was years before. I went to work on a picture which they just brought a Blu-ray out, and I'm on the documentary. The Astrologer, which was released widely or somewhat widely as Suicide Cult. And they could barely find anybody who would admit to working on the film. But Frank and I worked on it. And
before I knew him.
Yes, way before.
Yeah.
So I worked on a lot of commercials and industrials. And, you know, I started learning. I wanted to learn everything.
Yeah.
I would work on jobs, and if there were union jobs, they'd say, "Well, you got to sign this special thing that you'll immediately sign up for the union." I said, "Sure." No, I never would sign up for the union. But you know, I worked on a lot of stuff that was shot in New York. Sometimes, most of the time, it's like a paid PA in that, and working towards wanting to do something of my own. And Tom, Dorn, Frank, and myself, we wrote a script called The Hellspawn, and we were shopping it around. And we went through this whole thing where, you know, we decided finally, let's do a trailer for it. And so we started shooting a trailer. And an actress that I know who later worked on Igor and the Lunatic, but she was also, because she was also an actress, she was the one who called me one day and she said, I hope you don't mind. I gave you a name to this guy. He's looking to make a movie. And I said, well, fine, you know. And she said, well, he's editing something at the editing house I work at. So I figured, you know, maybe he should contact you. So Michael Lee contacted me. And he says, oh, I hear you have a script and you have footage. I said, well, we've shot footage. We haven't put it all together yet. You know, it's just, he says, well, I'd like you to come down to the city and show me what you got and bring the script. Well, the three of us talked and said, let's not give the guy the whole script. We have a detailed treatment. We'll bring that down and we'll bring down the footage. Now, nothing was cut together yet, and this was really kind of the early days before, you know, you could just pop it into a machine and make a tape even. So we drove down to Manhattan to his hotel and lugged this heavy projector, a screen, and a can of film, and met him, and we went into one of those meeting rooms and we projected it for him. And he said, oh, I like what I see. I like what I see. He said, well, I said, we didn't have a full script, but here's a treatment, you know. So he says, well, I'm going to be doing things. I'm going to be doing a lot of things, so I will be in touch. Well, months went by. We never heard a word. Never heard a word. And what eventually happened was he got back in touch and he said, I'm sorry, I've been really busy. I'm coming to the U.S., but I want you to send me the full script first in England. So I did that, and he called back and he said, we're coming in, let's meet. So Frank, myself, and Tom, we met with him. Well, we found out he was a busy little boy in the interim. He had made a portion of a film that was called The Nesting. It was shot on 35, and it was something about a house that was possessed, but the house was actually possessed. And it was a later film that came out a few years later called The Nesting, but it's no relation to this film. So he said, well, look, I like your script, but I'd like you to finish this movie first. And we're like, oh, wait to switch. I said, well, do you have the footage? No. But one of you can come back to England, I'll pay for it, and you can watch the footage. So Tom Dorn. And a few days later, he calls from England, and he goes, oh, my God. He said, I don't know if we want to do this. He said, there's miles of film. Now, remember, it's all 35, which is expensive. He says, I don't think if you put all of this, try to cut this, you would have more than maybe 12 minutes of the movie.
Oh, wow.
It's like 90 takes of things. And he says, I really don't, I don't know what we would do with this, but we really have to just shoot the whole thing over. So Michael comes over again and he says, well, what do you think? And he said, well, it doesn't sound like there's anything there. So he says, well, I'll ship the film over and you can all watch it. So I lived in an apartment at the time. I get a ring on the doorbell. There's guys, I have a delivery for you. Well, the guy never stopped bringing in cases. My whole hallway was piled high with boxes full of cases of 35 millimeter film.
Which I'm sure your father loved.
Oh, yeah. And so then we had to set up a screening to watch this. So we actually did and watched a lot of it, and it was like no days. I mean, I always remember there was like a 10-minute reel of a guy running down a path, turning to the right, going up a little rise to a tree. There was like endless takes of this.
Oh,
And there was one tape that had a few scenes cut together. And I mean, they were really short scenes. But one was just this conversation in the living room. And then one was this young couple, because they were supposed to have bought this mansion, not knowing it was possessed. And suddenly this big head appears on the wall, and big lips and goggly eyes. And then there's like a shot of somebody going into the mouth being eaten. And it was actually, the makeup was done by Jennifer Aspinall, who later worked on Spookies. And she said, "I'm glad you hired me even after seeing that stuff."
She was probably given a dime and a feather to do it.
Yeah, and probably no real support. And so after the three of us watching it, we still went, yes, forget it. This will probably blow the whole deal. But because we said, what are you going to do? Well, I said, we're not going to go over to England, are we? And he goes, oh, no, I'll bring the actors over here. And I was like, so now we got to find a place that matches some of this footage. So we turned it down. And we figured, that's probably it. Then a couple of days later, I get a call from Michael Lee. Well, could you deliver the footage for me? I said, deliver it? And he says, yes. I'd like you to bring it down to the city, to Andy Milligan. Now, if you're a horror person, you know who Andy Milligan is. He did The Werewolves Are Coming, The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here, Bloody Butchers. And he had an acting troupe and had bought a building on 39th Street. And so every ounce of my car was full of nothing but film canisters. I couldn't even put them back in the boxes. I had to and I said, I hope they have somebody down there. Well, we get down there, and Tom Dorn's been with me. And Andy wasn't there, but somebody from his acting troupe, and they took the cans in, and my car stopped scraping on the street because it was literally weighed down with. And I said, well, that's definitely it, because Andy, if he offers him $1.38, Andy will shoot this. And then he calls me back, Michael, and says, well, Andy turned it down. That's the first time I thought the man had any taste. But it turns out, so he said, I like your script, but I don't want to make it. I want you to write a new script. And I said, well, you're going to pay for it? And he said, well, just do a treatment. And he said, I want lots of creatures in it. That's the only real idea he had. I want lots of creatures, lots of things going on. So, let's shut that phone off. Every time I hear that Star Trek thing, so we went, we were figuring, okay, let's think. We actually hashed out a whole treatment. And he says, he says, I'll pay you for the treatment. And he said, if I like it, we'll go ahead with the picture. And that's how Twisted Souls was sort of born. We did the treatment. He made a couple of suggestions. And then he says, I like it. I'll go for it. And so that started us on that path,
Sorry, my father was ill, so I have to leave my cell phone on.
So then, that led to it. And then in the interim, Frank and I appeared in Dawn of the Dead. We were zombies.
Right.
We went down to the place down in well, it was outside of Pittsburgh. I keep forgetting the name of it.
Mall?
The big mall there.
Monroeville.
And so that was fun. So that got us in the mood. And then, we wound up writing Twisted Souls. And then, he didn't like the name. So he came up with a list of names. Horrible. The one we could live with kind of the best was Spookies, which I've actually grown to like.
I mean, one of the ones on the list was Bowel Erupters.
Yeah, he wanted to call it Bowel Erupters, and we just looked at him like, joking, right? And then later on, we discovered how much he was like into bowel movements and things like that. So.
I think we've all found that out the hard way.
Yeah. Including the farting muckman. Yeah.
Yes, that was one of the I mean,
you
that's
We saw
when we saw the movie in the theater, and that happened, and Tom was sitting next to me. Oh my God!
I thought he was going to cry.
I thought he was going to blow through the top of the roof of the theater, because he was like, my scene, because that was his scene, he really worked hard. That was a hard scene to shoot, very hard. We had to bring in piles of dirt. There was no dirt. We brought it in.
It was a tiled room.
It was a tiled room to store wine in.
Oh my God!
And the whole thing with the kegs breaking, there was a window behind them, and there was hoses attached with liquid, so that was a lot of work to do. So he was just
So you shot the footage for the Muckman, but then Jeannie Joseph added the noises.
Yeah, the sound effects.
Well, she to be fair to her, as little as I wanted to, it was really Michael Lee who wanted that. He thought it was hilarious. He thought it was a great idea. And as I said, it truly was. He would walk around and ask you to pull his finger, and he would fart. He would make the sound of farting, he'd fart.
And he'd lift his leg to do it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
he was just he was just Seth Rogen before Seth Rogen's time.
He makes Seth Rogen look good.
Well, Seth Rogen's funny. I mean, I at least think he's funny, but it doesn't sound like this guy was.
Yeah, not after what he did to the Green Hornet. I don't particularly like him, but but that and Michael was one of those guys who got sudden inspiration, and you just started feeling a nervous sweat break out when he would start saying, "I have an idea." It's like, oh God. Yes, the gorilla suit was I don't even know if I mentioned it on the documentary, but I was setting up in the foyer to shoot something, and Michael Lee comes in bouncing, and he's all happy and smiling. He goes, "I can get a gorilla suit," and I'm like, "Well, that's good for you," and he's left. He goes, "No, for the movie." I said, "For the movie? Where would it go in the movie?" And he says, "Well, we could just pop in. I found this guy has a gorilla. I said, "You just pop in? Why?" He says, "Well, didn't a lot of these old haunted house movies have like gorillas?" And I said, "Yeah, in the 1920s and 30s. Not now. We don't need a gorilla." So I was I hadn't had my first cup of coffee, and I was really like wanting to punch it. So I said, "Well, wait out front, and I'll be out in a couple of minutes. We're just finishing setting up." And he walked out, and I went over and I locked the door. So we started getting everything ready. About 10 minutes in, I hear, "Hello, hello," and the turning of the knob of the door. Of course, it's locked. And I just went, "Michael, we're just getting ready to shoot. I'll talk to you later." And then he never brought it up again, thank God. You know. But I think he did put it in the movie because I think that's what that cat man, wolf man, whatever it is.
The cat thing.
Yes, it's his gorilla.
Oh, oh man, that was, yeah, it's funny, you could tell what was like, the
Yeah, it's two different things.
right, there's just random stuff just getting thrown in, and just,
Yeah.
what?
The pirate cowboy cat, man. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, and then the child molester sitting on a log, going, "Hey, Billy,
Yeah.
what is this?"
First they take with a head in it.
Head in it, It was just, I think it was a case where Eugenia Josephs saw that she could make this.
An opportunity.
She was an opportunity. Oh boy, I'm not just going to edit this. He's full of these wonderful ideas. I'll just keep telling him how great they are, and next thing we'll be filming them.
Right.
Because there was need to so many additional footage.
Oh, we had a 2.5-hour rough
cut. A rough assembly. Yeah.
It just needed some tweaking.
Well, it needed a little bit more than tweaking, but it was
tweaking. It needed some effects.
Well, the main thing was the end sequence. It's so weird in this movie because you have the zombies at the end, and they were originally in our treatment.
Right.
And his lawyer, who I spoke to once, he goes, "Hello, my name's Bond." I said, "James Bond?" And obviously he had no sense of humor. And he said, "No, you can't have zombies in it. There's problems in certain countries about having zombies and things." So that's when we came up with the idea about the ghosts and the spirits flying around. But originally there was supposed to be zombies, but they weren't supposed to be like walking around. It was supposed to be keeping the people in the house, not letting them escape. That was more what it was about.
Oh, okay.
And except for that little bit of footage that would have been done at the end and then putting in the ghost effect, everything had been shot for the picture. There was no need to go back and shoot any additional material, just finish effects in one little piece at the end, which had to be done because it had effects in it where the house was going to kind of glow and shiver and disappear.
There were certain scenes that were complete, and they chopped pieces out of it.
Well, they used alternate takes. That was the one thing.
No, the Anthony scene going down the hallway, they chopped the whole section out.
Well, that was just for bad re-edit. I mean, the hallway demon was one that I directed, and I had set this whole thing up where it would go from Anthony, to go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and you'd have interspersing cuts with Charlotte, and then you would have him say something, go into the dark, and then when it suddenly appeared, it was the creature, but there was a build-up to it. She just went boop, 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 and monster, and that took me almost half a day to shoot because, we're trying to get it just right with the lights, so he would go into full darkness when he would step out of the light.
Yeah.
So, and he just cut things, and,
And the fight scene on the balcony was slightly chopped.
Yeah, well, it was all, she went through, I think she was trying to, I don't think she was much of an editor, but I think she then was able to think of how could I get more footage for myself in here. and that's what she did.
The one scene that was most theater scene was the
Well, yes, except for the Batman music. Oh my God!
So now, was all this footage lost? Did anybody keep
Yeah.
any of it?
That's the big question. Uh, Now Michael Lee, when uh, Vinegar Syndrome made the deal with him, um, said that was all. He had certain material and that was it, and he had turned over everything he had. I don't know if any of that other footage exists or doesn't exist. Um, After the movie was all said and done, we got a letter from Deluxe Precision, which was our lab, and they said there is an outstanding bill for storage, and I think it came to a few $1,000. And if you pay it, the footage is, everything's fine. If you don't pay it by a certain time, we're just going to dump everything. So initially, the three of us thought, well, let's get the footage. Let's scrape together the money and get the footage. And our lawyer at the time said, bad move, bad move. It could be looked at as theft. You did this as a work for hire. You had no ownership of that footage. And it could be grand theft. And besides, what are you going to do with it? You can't release it. You can't do anything with it. But we should have at least gone down, seen what they had there, and then decided from there. Because at least we could have gotten it if there was some of the positive print there. We might have been able to cut together stuff. Because at that point, we hadn't seen the picture, I think, and seen exactly what she had done to it.
Yeah.
But the letter was sent on to his lawyers in New York, and I don't know if he paid the bill or he just said let them dump it. So I don't know. I don't know if Eugenia Josephs kept footage that she had worked on, maybe from what she shot and what we shot, or any of it afterwards. Because I've never talked to the woman. I've never seen her. The only time I knew what she looked like was I went on IMDb and it was like, oh, that's what she looks like. I'd never seen her. Even though she's
ran into her a few times.
Yes, our attorney was at a big film thing in Canada, and she was set up there, and she was giving these interviews about all the work she did on Spookies and how we worked with her and that. And he walked over to her and said, ma'am, I represent those men, and if you continue to say these falsehoods, we may have to take legal action. And she was like, like in Canada, I'm not even saying. But, and we had an article stopped that she was going to publish where she was basically taking a lot of credit for things she had nothing to do with. But, I've never talked to her. As far as I know, I don't think Frank or Tom ever met her or talked to her or anything.
It's funny how things like that end up just being, rumors getting started and they just go with it. So one of the other rumors that I heard was that you had you had George Romero on the set of Spookies dressed up as Santa Claus on a motorcycle as a zombie?
No. I was in that scene.
That was Dawn of the Dead.
That was
right, you were in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, and they did a scene. They did a lot of stuff that didn't show up in the final print. Hasn't shown up on a lot of the extras and all the other, the Dario Argento cut, the Denny's cut, whatever. There's all these. As a matter of fact, Arrow brought out one. I haven't seen that one, but that's supposed to have footage that has never been seen. But there was a scene that he was doing where he was on a motorcycle. He was dressed as Santa Claus, and I don't think it was his wife then, but his girlfriend at the time. She's dressed as an elf, and she has a big, like, Santa Claus bag, supposed to be, I guess, full of presents, and they're riding through the interior of the mall, and he's going, ho, 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 and the elf is whacking the zombies, and then I come up to him. There was like a little bridge that went over a pond in the middle of the mall, and he's just heading for that, and I walk up, and she gives me a whack and spins me around, and that never. A matter of fact, there's a great photo. I wanted to get it when the photographer was on there, because shortly after that I think we did the scene where you do see me and you see Frank coming down, as by store windows and banging against the store windows and that, and I get the pie, and there's a great thing where I'm looking up as the zombie, and there's all the white on my shoulder, and look at a bird took a crap on me, and I'm like looking up.
He is forever known as the pie face
zombie. Well, even Romero referred to me every time I ran into him. He goes, "Oh, pie face, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I do have a name."
That's what they have you credited in its IMDb.
Yeah, yeah. But actually, even Roy is a pie face as well, but to a degree. But there was a lot of stuff shot, and he did a lot of stuff that just never wound up anywhere. I haven't seen the footage anywhere. And Romero was fast, boy. He could shoot stuff. He didn't like linger. He just kept going. I mean, the one night, as soon as the Muzak went off, that was our cue we could come out of hiding. They had a big room where they kept us, because they didn't want to frighten the people, and they didn't want to let them know what was going on there. And one of the zombies went out to get a soda, and they lambasted that poor son of a gun when he got back. You're not supposed to. And evidently, one kid started crying when they saw him. But we were hidden in there, and then the minute the Muzak stopped, then it was like, okay, they're closing the mall. And then we could scurry out from under our, rocks and that. And he would get stuff set up and go, like, right away. And as soon as the Muzak came on in the morning, that was quitting time. And it would come on about 7 in the morning. So from about like 9:30 to 7 in the morning, we were shooting. Yeah. And Roy, of course, was doing his Document of the Dead at the time.
Yeah, I've seen some of the footage of that on the DVDs for the extra features of the Document of the Dead such.
Yeah, I was supposed to do some more on that because I was at a show that he was at, and Romero was there. It was funny because Romero, they had a separate area where they'd set it up, and he goes, "Oh, Five Kids, you're going to join us and sign autographs?" I said, "No, I'm actually set up at the show." And he goes, "Well, you come on down," But I love the guy who was I think he passed, but he was the guy who was the person who was in charge of all the weaponry and armor, as they call it in the business. And he was a retired FBI agent. And he was going on one day. He also played a zombie in it, of course, at some point. But he turned around and he said, "Well, I love working with him. I don't even have to take the medication anymore." I'm thinking, this guy's got all the guns around him, you know. And then we had real bikers, and these guys didn't play. These guys were having fun, but they were having a little too much fun, you know. They actually held one of the ADs over the edge on the second floor and threatened to drop him on his head, you know, because he had tried to chastise them, you know. And that's where the submachine guns came from, was from them.
That's funny.
Well, they were loaded with blanks, but these guys shouldn't have even had them. But
You didn't tell them?
no, I wasn't. They were actually pretty fun, but they were getting pretty wasted, and so they were getting wilder and wilder as the night went on.
Yeah, well, led to
That was the
pretty good footage.
Not out.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of those outtakes.
You know, and there was like one guy who was one of the backers, and he was drunk as a lord, and he wanted to be a zombie, and so to keep peace, they said, "I'll make him up as a zombie." And Jeannie, I can't remember her last name, but she was one of the assistant makeup people. She was like a model too. She was beautiful, beautiful girl. You know, and he's getting it. "Hey, you gonna make up my dick too?" And they're like, "Oh." And then he's going down, and then we're all walking down and hitting on the window. "Oh, don't! This is somebody's shop. You don't really want to." Well, he's banging on the windows like he's trying to break in, and there's like babies going. I don't know what to say to him. He's got money in this, you know. So they kept trying to kind of calm him down, but he was wasted, you know.
Oh my god. That must have been
But
fun. That must have been very fun.
I don't think Romero sit down once. He would be on. He'd be going boom the whole time. And he had his crew was really good, man. They would get things relit in a second, but he'd change his mind about something. It was great.
Yeah. Now, you had a crew that had to redo the house that you shot Spookies in, right? You had to fix things in the house. You had to repair it.
We did each room as a separate set.
You mean when well, like for instance, in the Spider-Woman sequence, we had the entire living room redone as a cave. And it was done by Tom Molinelli, who was one of the unsung heroes of the production. He would work, and he got really into doing this cave so much that he locked the door so nobody else could come in.
This guy would work sometimes 36 hours straight.
And he always wore these kind of clothes. He looked like Papillon, you know. He looked like he had gotten out of a French prison or something. And
orange t-shirt and jeans. That was his standard uniform.
Yeah, and it's like these weird. But he got so into it and wanted it just a certain way. He didn't want anybody coming in until it was finished. So, you know, the AD's knocking on the door and said, "Well, we'd like to see it." "Well, you'll see it when it's finished." "It's not finished." You know. So he rebuilt that. So that doubled as that. But we used almost every room in the house. And the place was haunted. It was actually haunted.
Very much so.
Very much so. I mean, yeah, there was weird things that happened. There was Gabe Bartalis, who became our lead makeup person. When he came to first look at the house, and we said, "Okay, you can go up and you can take a walk around and that." So when he comes back down, he goes, "Well, who's the old lady?" I said, "There's nobody supposed. You had keys. There's nobody else in that house." He said, "Yeah, there was an old lady up there. Is she living there?" I said,
she described her white hair, up in a bun, 1800s clothing.
and I said, there's nobody there. And we walked up with them, and there was nobody there. And then, we were setting up a fight scene that was going to happen the next morning when we started, our first shot.
On the balcony, we're the only two there. I'm standing with my back to a wall, and something comes up and does it.
And, there was weird, when we were doing the hallway unit scene, we put black wrap all the way down the hallway. And as we were setting it up, at one point, I knew there was a room that was right off of there, and I figured I wanted to stand back so I could get a better angle. So as I went to open the door comes flying back at me. And I said, oh, sorry, I didn't know anybody was in there. And nobody answered. So I opened the door slowly, walked in, and the room's empty. And the other door that was to that room had cables down it, and the door was closed off. You couldn't have gotten through it. And that door hit me with some force.
Wow.
And others saw apparitions on the top floor. And our DP, Ken Pope, he had 2 Dobermans with him who would protect his equipment truck.
Yeah.
Those dogs refused to go in the basement. They would put all 4 brakes on and would not go down.
And start yowling, and they would not go down into it. And we lost the Coven of Witchcraft there. When we were in pre-production, this Coven showed up, and they said, we hear this house has energies and so on. We'd like to and I said, well, we're not open to the public, and they said, no, just let us go up for like a half hour. So Chrissy was one of our PAs. I said, take them up, unlock the door, and then I said, in 30 minutes, go back and tell them. So Tom and I and Frank were doing something, and I saw Chrissy after. I said, well, did you tell them to go? I said, it's over a half hour. She goes, I went up there. There's nobody there. I said, what do you mean there's nobody there? They got to be there. They said they wanted 30 minutes. She said there was nobody. I walked through the whole house yelling for them. There's nobody there. I said, well, where did they go? The only way they could, at that point, they could have driven out was past us. Because I think they had parked their car around the corner. Nobody had passed by that building, so we don't know what happened to them. We never saw them again.
The only possibility is they could have walked out the chain part of the driveway and walked
they couldn't have, unless they flew their car over it, they couldn't have been driven out of it. And next to us was what they call a conservancy, and it's like a private woodland for that. So we went over to introduce ourselves, that we would be with the neighbors for a while. And the woman was very nice. She looked, very ordinary. And she says, well, have you seen them yet? And I was like, seen who? There's nobody. And she pointed straight up. She says, walk out to the long backyard, because literally that backyard, where you see the graves, that goes all the way down to the sound. 23 acres. 23 acres.
Wow.
And she says, take a look at the high grass. And literally, there were circles. There were,
isosceles triangles.
Isosceles triangles pressed down in the grass down there. She said, oh, they come all the time. You'll see them. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we started having some of the cops from Rye come up and hang out with us. And they said, do you hear it? Oh, yeah, there's, we see them all the time. We never report them because they always want to give us a breathalyzer. Yeah, there's things flying around here. I was like, oh, we're in a freaking atmosphere.
When we were doing night shoots, and the cops came over and took us aside and said, we want everybody to go in twos and threes down to the main carriage house where we had our offices set up. There's an escaped killer on the loose in this area.
Maybe. And of course he would find us if he got out.
But they caught him 2 days later.
They caught him 2 days later.
After he killed someone.
Well, I think that.
Well, that's what they told me.
But,
Jeez.
you know, there was a lot of strange things. There was a girl who showed up when we were shooting, and I thought she was a PA. She looked almost ethereal. And I was like, God, I don't remember her being hired at. And we're doing the scene and that. And then I asked somebody who was in charge of the PAs. I said, who is that PA? And I point over and she's not there. He goes, well, what did she look like? I told her what she looked like. And she goes, we don't have any PAs that look like that. And she was only there for about an hour or two. So there was a lot of strange vibes there on that property.
The guy who showed up with his daughter.
Oh, God, yes. It was
Friday the 13th was shooting in the area.
No, they weren't shooting in the area. The guy went up to the house and started hammering on the door of the mansion. Some of the PAs were up there getting stuff fixed up. And they called down. We had radios between them. There's somebody hammering on the door saying, I know you're shooting Friday the 13th in there. And I want to get in. I want to get in.
Yeah, and he drove down to Terry's house with his daughter in the...
He had his young daughter.
Who was freezing.
And he goes, I want to get in. I want to see this. I said, you've got 2 choices. Either you leave now, or we call the police. And you either leave now, or we'll call the police and you'll leave that way. But I want to see Friday the 13th. I said, we'll go to the movie. You know, but weird things like that happened on that property. Weird things.
And it was the Supreme Court Chief Justice John Jay's house, right?
It was his son's house. It's always referred to as the John Jay Mansion, but it actually was built for his son. But it's that John Jay family. And just to finish up so it's not true that George Romero came to our set, although we did help out Romero on Day of the Dead, because there was money troubles on that, and you know, Gabe and some of the other makeup people knew the makeup people, knew Tom Savini, I knew Tom Savini, and that they were working on it. Well, they needed all these bodies done. And they had the molds of bodies from a movie called Gorky Park. And they needed a place to run the foam and take the molds and run the foam and everything. So they asked if they could do it up because we had a huge place set up for makeup. It was actually the kitchen. It was that big. It was like a kitchen for like a restaurant. It was so big. And so we started doing, letting them do that. And they would take, once they were dried to a degree, they would take them out and lay them out on the grass so they would fully cure. Now, there'd been a woman calling us saying, I'm from a historical society, and I know you've got the place open. I really would like to come up and look at it and take pictures. He said, well, we're really busy. We'll take your number, and when we can, we'll set up something where you can go and look. So I'm shooting part of the snake demon scene in one room. Tom's rehearsing across the foyer in another room. All of a sudden, in the middle of this scream, and I really got PO'd. I thought, Mom knows I'm shooting in here. Why is he having somebody screaming in the other room when he knows, they can fake scream. So I walk out the foyer just at the time Tom walks out, and he goes, why are you having them scream so loud? And I was like, I'm not doing it. I thought you were doing it. And then we realized it was coming from outside. We raced out, some of the crew. There's a woman clicking pictures of the bodies curing out in the side yard, and looks up at us, starts screaming even more. And as we try to move towards her, she runs to her car, jumps in it, and takes off. A few hours later, one of the cops shows up from Rye and says, "We had an interesting visitor today. A woman who came in and said she thought she found mass murderers, and she has the pictures to prove it." And I think it was the one who kept trying to come up from the Historical Society. You know,
Well, that should have been great justification that your zombie or that your dead bodies looked so real.
well, actually, this type of foam, it looked sort of flesh-like. It didn't look like some of that stuff looked like really gray or that, but this looked kind of flesh-like. And then later on, we had a 2 week break, and our makeup guys went down and worked on Day of the Dead for a week or so. So there is that connection, but Romero never came up to the set. I wish he had. It would have been good PR.
Oh yeah, but yeah, that was part of the rumor.
The pulsating tomb in Spookies was that the added footage, or was that originally
Yes,
you,
that's
the
the
pulsating at the beginning? Okay.
I'm not sure who did that. I mean, um, uh, on that shoot, um, now I can't think of his name. Arno Gargiulo went back and worked on that. I don't know if he had anything to do with that, but we did not. We did not do that. That whole thing was just great. Whatever the gravestones were, that was us. But
Yeah, I see. Because when you watch the ending of that movie, and the warlock pops out of it, I was like, well, that was kind of dumb to show the pulsating tomb in the beginning. I'm like, I wonder if that was old footage, and they just decided, oh, we'll just say that this guy was supposed to pop out the whole time.
no.
It kind of makes it even worse than that they actually tried to set that up.
Well, they did. They wanted to do a lot of stupid things because the setup for the movie was we had Joe Niola, who plays Igor in Igor and the Lunatic. Good place to play it. But Joe plays this hobo called Jakey, and Jakey refers to himself all the time. He looks out and he sees the magic and, well, Jakey, that's a good place to spend the night, huh? He talks in the third person. So, and I did this whole scene where he goes in, he starts hearing sounds. Suddenly, he's literally lifted up and slammed into a wall. He runs out. He goes to run up the stairs. And the thing that really annoys me is that we spent a lot of time setting this one sequence up where we had Jimmy Muro doing steadicam. Now, Jimmy Muro went on to he did the steadicam work for Dances with Wolves. And he's done a lot of big stuff. And he's a great guy. And we had him on the Steadicam, and what it was supposed to be is Joe comes up the stairs, and we have Jimmy come down with the Steadicam, and it's supposed to be like a demonic figure coming at him. We put like a wide lens on it so it would distort. And now this is the days before you had all this CGI stuff that you could use. We had gouges done on Joe's face and then covered with latex with hair thin wire on it. So when the thing got up to him, suddenly the whole face like ripped open, and then Joe would fall back. down the stairs, and it looked great. And what they wanted to do when they did the reshoot is they wanted that stupid Catman to be with Joe, and that he would become Jakey. So when he's saying things to Jakey, he's talking to this dog man or whatever he was, Catman. So he'd be turning around and it's like, well, what sense does that make? Why is he going into this house with this Catman, and then all these other things are happening to him, and suddenly he's horrified? He's walking around with something from another world to begin with. It didn't make. And Joe Niola, when they called him about it, he said, "Well, I fulfilled my contract. I did everything. I've done everything." And they said, "Well, this is what we want to shoot." And he goes, "No, I fulfilled my contract. I'm not coming back." So instead of just forgetting about doing the stupid thing with the Catman there, they cut the whole scene out, which is like
put the kid in
the birthday party and stuff like that.
Oh,
The whole scene is gone.
that sounds like a great scene.
No sense.
Yeah, well, it was great because when Joe goes to fall back, we had a really good stuntman, and he really did like a tumble down the stairs, and then we had the stunt set up where the guy really hits the wall, and it really moved, and it's just all gone. And except for looking at it in rough cut, I've never seen the scene again.
Oh.
But if they had let the Catman in there, the whole scene's probably would have been there.
Yeah, but it wouldn't make any sense more than the birthday party does.
Or Maria Pachuca's
climbing down a trellis in a
and she
dress.
Supposedly got really hurt from what I heard. That trellis gave way, but she had to be taken to the hospital.
And they tried to bill our insurance.
Yeah, they tried to bill our insurance from Spookies. They tried to bill our insurance because we suddenly get a call. Well, they had an emergency call. It's like it has nothing to do with us,
Yeah.
But well, God rest her soul. She's passed since, but and none of that stuff made any sense.
No.
Or the kid with the fangs who looked like
his son.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. It looked like Dennis the Menace with a hood on.
In my honest opinion, we did film and trash.
Oh yeah, but but Michael Lee didn't really know much about filmmaking. He just was lucky. He hit on something which in England is called a video nasty, and he made a fortune off it. But he didn't really know anything about filmmaking. But another interesting point is Andy Milligan did work with him. We didn't know this till we were almost finished pre-production, but they had shot a movie over in Staten Island that for a lot less money than we were, our budget, for a picture called Carnage that Michael Lee put up the money for. I've never seen the picture, but Andy Milligan did wind up working for it, but not on this thing.
Oh, wow.
So were there any of the creatures in your picture that they cut out completely? Like any of the practical effect creatures?
Well, to a degree. John Dodge had made a version of like the Spider Woman type thing, and then it was going to be a stop motion animation. Now I think there's like a little, very quick little shot like that, but most of it isn't there because he pulled the plug on doing the rest of it, so it's not in the movie. In terms of any other monsters, I do not think so. I think all the monsters are in there. They're just badly cut.
Some truncated section.
Yes.
Well, we don't engage them.
The last scene of I believe what Yusuf shot was with Carol's head with the yellow glow coming out of it.
Yes.
What was supposed to happen after that?
Well, no, the whole thing was in that there's a whole sequence that you only see little bits and pieces from, where at the end we have Joan Ellen's character and Peter Dame's character. The life is being sucked out of them, and she's in there, and she's starting to glow, and she's causing all this disruption, and they start to age. They start to age, and he did all this old age makeup, and they're trying to get out of the house, but what Lisa 3D's character is doing is drawing the life force, trying to draw the life force out of everybody in the house. So we're centering on Joan Ellen and Peter Dane's character. And there's one little shot of it, very quick if you watch, where they're at like a tombstone, and it's really quick, and you can see some of the old age makeup. But did a whole thing where the lights are flashing. We did this whole light show where they're changing, and they had to keep torches lighting, and glowing starting to happen, and then some of that was optically added, and them like aging more and more and more. We had to keep stopping and adding more makeup to them, and painting the makeup more to make it stand out like they were really aging and aging and aging. Of course, in our version, they when the whole thing is destroyed, they come back. They go back to their normal, healthy selves, but they just use somebody laying face down on the ground. It's not even in the costumes. It's not even.
Everybody refused to go back.
The only one who went back was Arnold, and he's the only one that went back to do makeup, because he had actually left maybe about halfway through, because I think it was just he took on too much work, and he was falling more behind, even though he was trying his best. And that's when Gabe, we asked Gabe, did he think he could handle it? And he stepped up and took the first chair. Well, Jennifer did a lot. She came on and did a lot of stuff. She not only did glamour makeup, but she helped out on the special makeup. And there were a whole load of people that kind of came in for a short period of time, didn't even get paid. What's the on The Walking Dead, the Nicotero. Supposedly he was down there, in our what we used to call the body shop, which is the big makeup area.
It was a kitchen.
And even some of and I'm sure he must be retired now, so it doesn't matter. There was one cop who was crazy to learn makeup. And he would sometimes park his patrol car, come in and go to work in the body shop instead of being out on patrol.
Overall, it was a great shoot.
It was fun. It was long. It was months. And
we made long-lasting, forever friendships.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And not all the people we see, but we do make contact, and run into a lot of the people over the years still. And they all had, in talking when we did this other type of podcast thing, and a lot of them were there. All of them said, "Yeah, there was tough days, but we all miss it. We all think about it and say, gee, how much fun it was in many ways. We forget the bad days, like the 14-hour days, and
And half a day off, and then the night shoots.
night shoots. Yeah,
Oh wow.
this was a hell for the union, I'll tell you."
I learned a lot about makeup from Abe. I've done some small makeup gigs since then.
Right, and that I was going to ask you. You were a makeup artist. Now, did you were so let me rephrase this question here because there's a movie called Killer Dead, also known as Non-Vegetarian Zombies from Outer Space, which is credited as a sequel to Spookies. The two of you worked on that. It's noted as that. I'm not saying it really is, but it's noted as that.
We own that movie. That's our movie.
I did executive producing. Brendan directed it, and we
co-wrote it.
Now, is that available anywhere? Because I can't find it. I tried.
Well, there's another horror story in itself. Not the shooting of it. The shooting of it went fairly well.
The reason they say it's a spooky sequel because it has a lot of the same.
Almost the entire group, even the background crew, are from Spookies. Ken Kell shot it. Peter. No, Susan Lane wasn't there, but
Alexandra did sound.
The same cast of characters. We had everybody. It was like a reunion. So the reason that's why a lot of people say that is because it's a lot of the same people, but it's not a sequel. It's about zombies and aliens.
Was it released? Because I tried to find it. I couldn't find it.
Released, but it was released, but not in this country. We got involved with a sales agency called Double Helix, and they sold foreign territories, but they never sold the American territory.
Or gave us any money.
We never saw any money from it. And then they went bankrupt. And that's why some listings will give this Krishna Shaw as the executive producer. He owned Double Helix. He was no executive producer. And so we actually shot a new wraparound for the movie a couple of years ago.
And we need to finish one scene and then spruce up some of the effects.
Yeah, some of the effects in it. And then we have about 2 or 3 companies that want to bring it out, but it never came out here. A matter of fact, I got a very irate call from Canada, from this guy who ran a video company, and he goes, "I want my elements." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I bought the Canadian rights for, non-vegetarian zombies at the time. And I haven't gotten the thing. And I paid $25,000. And I said, well, this is the first I'm hearing of it. And I said, Double Helix just went bankrupt. Well, what about my $25,000? I said, I don't know. You're going to have to call their lawyers. You can call my lawyer, I said, but I know nothing about this deal. I've never been appraised of it or anything. He said, I'm out $25,000. I said, it looks like it. I said, unless you want to pay me another $25,000, I'll send you the elements.
Well, then Double Helix tried to claim our film under their asset.
Yeah, at one point they say, oh, well, this is one of our... No, it's not one of your pictures. You were just a sales rep for it. And after that, the market had changed, and some of the deals that were being offered, I was like, forget it. I'm not, show them off. Well, we'll give you $15,000. I said, oh, up front? No, for the whole rights. I said, drop dead. I sooner burn it.
Right, all
I spent
that work.
far more. Yeah. And So I just sort of put it away. Actually, I have a whole other feature that I shot, which just is under the working title Demon. It's shot on 3/4 inch. I've never even edited it. It's just all sitting there.
Yeah, I
I did
remember you
that
telling me
in
about
the
that you still have that. That's another
Yeah.
one I was going to ask you is are you planning on editing it and maybe releasing
Oh yeah,
it?
I'm gonna put it. It's all there. It's all shot.
We just have to transfer it to a medium that I can edit it in.
We're just gonna transfer this. It's all on 3/4 inch. Um, but now we're sort of getting back more into it, and we've had some offers from some different video companies for. I'm going back to the. I never liked non-vegetarian zombies. They're hungry. They I was like, are you kidding me? And the thing is that I don't even know. I don't think I have it here. It was the thing from the. Did I leave it up here? No, is that it? No, that's not it. I probably put it away somewhere else. Anyway, the uh, there's a nice painting which Tom Molinelli did for us for that movie of the alien and that. They used that, but they put the title on it. There it is. Here, just hold it. I don't know if you can.
Oh
But Tom
yeah,
Molinelli, and I have the painting in that.
that's awesome.
Oil and canvas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Plus, he actually did the original painting for Spookies, which was gorgeous. It had the Weeper and all this other stuff. Now, the art they got, which is the guy's a well-noted comic book artist, I like. I think it's really good. But this Reaper thing was great. I don't know what happened to that thing. It was turned over to Michael Lee, and
Probably with the old footage.
yeah, it's probably with the old footage in the landfill. But like again, Tom Molinelli, he carved an entire for Killer Dead. He carved a spaceship,
Wow.
an entire spaceship, and it looks like it's like museum quality. And plus, Molinelli did all the things like the sarcophagus, which I still have from Spooky. He did all this carving and stuff like that, and
most of the tombstones that we use on Spooky
and on Killer Dead,
he did some rubbing.
yes, he actually carved them all.
Wow.
He just a phenomenal. We had a lot of phenomenal people on those shoots.
Well, Cecilia also did a lot of the tombstones. She worked with Molinelli and
Yes.
a bunch of that stuff.
Who later became Tom's wife.
Tom Doran's wife,
Tom
not
Doran.
Tom Molinelli's wife.
Not Tom Molinelli. But yeah, she did a lot. We had a lot of talented people on there.
Oh,
I wish they would find the footage. I keep hoping. I mean, we found actually John Donaldson, who was our editor on Spooky. He finally actually found that he had what we call the pinhead reel that we used to shoot. Like if somebody really screwed up,
Or hit a light or tripped over something.
they'd have to wear clothes things, and they would photos would be the movies would be shot with the end of a tape or something there. And we thought that was lost. And then he actually found it in a storage unit that he had. He said, "What is this footage?" And he said, "I think this is the pinhead reel." And he gave it to me, and I was actually doing a film show up in Rome, New York, where they show 35 millimeter film. And I went to the projection. I said, "Would you run this after you finish the schedule? I just would like to see what's on it." So we actually had the pinhead reel debuted in a movie palace, a Athenian movie palace. and it was thought to be lost. Now, if we can find the rest of it that way,
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think John has it.
no,
but
no.
that would be amazing. But
There
if you,
is a
yeah, I
film
mean,
called that's being held by a company in England, but they can't get permission to look at it.
Yeah, we don't know what it is. Actually, Arrow told me about it. They in store MGM UA still has storage facilities over in England, and they found out they have a number of cans, and it says Twisted Souls on it. So they're not sure if it's our Twisted Souls, which I don't think it would have been, or what it is.
Unless Mike is stored it there, but he can't remember.
He can't remember. Evidently, he lives in a home now. Now he's younger than I am, but he's in some sort of assisted living home in England, and they've interviewed him for that and a documentary on the video nasty era in England. And from the people I've talked to, they said, yeah, he doesn't seem to be quite all there. Now I don't know if it's just an act, if he's hiding out from somebody or what, but,
Or if he has dementia.
or he has actually dementia or something of that nature.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Right.
Well, maybe someday we'll find out, but if what's on
I
those
hope before I
canisters?
go. Yes, but
Be nice.
they wouldn't give them access to even look at it because they said you're not the owner of it and you have no rights to it. If you can show that somebody who has rights to it, but now they'd have to go to Vinegar Syndrome to get the rights to look at that, and it may not be the same film because it was
Right.
like another Spookies film made in like 2011, and there's one evidently made called The Spookies, I think in 2014.
Yeah, but that's entirely different. I think.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure they're entirely different, but you can have the same title.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
used to do that in Hollywood all
With, um,
But yeah, no, Twisted Souls is that's pretty specific though. I mean, I think it's a better title, Twisted Souls. So,
I do too.
I did too,
It
but
made much more sense considering the film.
yeah,
Yeah.
what the basis of the film was, you know,
But we didn't have control over that
No.
part of it.
We had sold our souls to the devil.
that's But when you do finish that other movie, I please let us know so that we can watch it because I'd love to see it. I'd love to see this movie that you've been sitting on, and then if Killer Dead ever comes over to the U.S. as well, I mean I know you said it's not your favorite,
I
but
think it would be shot here.
The shot here, we have it. It's just that we're going to do a few fix-ups to it because the original concept of Killer Dead was because we shot it in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah, we shot it in 2 weeks, and then we did like maybe about 4 days of pickups later on. But the whole idea was it was supposed to be an homage to those kind of low-budget horror sci-fi pictures of like the late 50s into the 60s. So we did certain things, and
Nobody got it.
nobody got it. Like we have these flying creatures, and you can actually slightly see the wires, but you were supposed to see the wires. You're supposed to be like one of those pictures. But now we figure, well, people don't quite get the joke. I guess if you're of a certain age, you might get the joke. But I think it's pretty decent. We had a lot of makeup. We had a lot of zombies, and we had all sorts of zombies. And
We buried my father.
that was another thing I thought was bad about Spooky. It looked like they had a hillbilly graveyard because it's like all the people are in plaid shirts and
Corn flat.
jeans. It's like what kind of a graveyard was this? Was this like for the riffraff or that? and nobody's coming up with any wood or anything like that. It's like they just threw them in a hole and covered them. You know,
Well, I think people
at
love the
least mine.
nostalgia of
Yeah.
people love the
Yeah,
nostalgia. So I think these movies, these two movies that you have, I think they'll end up being pretty popular because everybody loves those old time movies now, especially now. So it's yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're
And
gonna be
everybody's
successful.
looking for that lost gemstone out there
yeah.
that not many people have seen. So
So Demon
probably would
is more
do very
along the
well
lines
nowadays.
of psychological thriller.
Yeah, Demon is more of a psychological thriller, but there is horror sequence. Um, but we're going to get around to it. I think I got a few more reviews left in me. I'll be able to get around to all of it. I'm just waiting for the right time. Um, and I really wanted to get these last effects fixed and changed because I think we'll probably be listed in some record book in terms of the actor who plays the lead, Peter Dane, in Killer Dead, comes back to talk about what had happened in the past. So he's actually returning to the same role decades later and playing an older version of himself, you know. So I think that it's
Yeah,
sort of,
this is decades later.
well, it is, sadly, it's decades later. It's not like last week. Um, but I think that would be something. It's just like for years with Killer Dead, um, we held the record of the first movie to actually cut a woman on a buzzsaw.
No, that wasn't Killer Dead. That was
No,
Igor.
Igor, he's cutting a woman straight up the middle instead of across. There's a couple of books pointing that out. This is the first time a woman was actually cut, lengthwise instead of across. You know,
You started a
you
trend.
know. Well, actually, for some reason, in the editing facility that um she worked in, Constance Rogers, one day she's going into
We were
work.
editing Killer Dead.
Well, we weren't at this point, and she she goes. The other guys who are working there are looking at her kind of strange, and they said, I said it's you," and he says it's not you, and they have up on a screen the scene from Igor where she's getting cut by the buzzsaw. And she says, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "I thought I could keep the two worlds separate, but there they collided." You know.
Oh man.
It's definitely been an interesting experience.
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
Miles,
Feel
do you have
free.
any other questions?
Mm, no, not now.
I
I think we got a good amount. I because was gonna ask like what were upcoming things, but thankfully you were saying about how you're still in the editing process and such. I honestly I can't wait. I'm hoping to see the movie's work finished out.
Yeah, well, we're definitely gonna do it. Um, and also, when is if it does happen?
It's supposed to be mid-October. They're going to be showing Spookies at the
Alamo Draft House
in Yonkers.
in Yonkers,
And
and
there's going to be like a mini reunion.
yes, there's going to be a bunch of the people who are supposed to be coming there. We did something similar just before the pandemic in Brooklyn at one of the Alamo Draft Houses, and the guys who run that are actually big film fans as well. So they're trying to set up one uh, for this area, for, well, not our area, but for
Well, Yonkers is
Yonkers.
going to show the film and they want to show the documentary.
And they're going to be the last time uh, the film had been shown in Brooklyn. It was an actual 35 print, but this is actually the fully restored in terms of color and everything else, digital transfer.
Oh wow, that'll be.
I'm surprised the Mahoning Drive-In hasn't reached out to do something like that.
Now I know at one point, but I wasn't going to travel down there. It was like at one of the Alamo draft houses in Texas. They said, "Oh, you want to come down and talk?" And like, well, you're going to pay for my way? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Hop on the Greyhound bus and head down?
2 weeks later.
Yeah. But I was actually heading off to do a show, so there wasn't any way I could have done it anyway. But yeah, occasionally the Alamo Draft House does some interesting things, like when they did Dr. Butcher there. And so, what I would like to see is actually somebody get Roy Funkis to actually let that footage out and do something with it while there's enough of us still breathing to talk about it. Well, we can't finish it now. All of a sudden, we go from somebody who's in their 20s to somebody who's in their 60s who's the same character. It'd be a little too avant-garde,
Well, we'll tag him in this, and we'll call him out and tell him, "Hey, listen, we have requests here to get this footage out."
Yes. Because I think he has everything. I know he has all the negatives and stuff like that. So I think he has even all the regular what's being cut on the prints and so on.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I've not seen any of it.
I haven't seen it in decades.
Oh wow, yeah.
So,
Well, share it with the world.
especially
Come on, Roy.
especially it being a Wes Craven, and the Wes Craven episode is really good.
Yeah.
It's about a cowboy who comes back from the dead, but he somehow winds up in Manhattan and on 42nd Street. Now this is Manhattan, 42nd Street and Broadway back in the 70s when there was nothing but prostitutes, drug dealers, and porno buildings there.
Yeah.
And and then he winds up at a ranch later on. But the one funny story with that is when we were shooting outside, we got the permission from the porno place. Well, it wasn't a theater. It was like you went in, there was peep shows. It was, you could get, magazines and so on. There was a girl. She wasn't unattractive, but she was standing over, and when we were shooting this big scene out front of this porno theater, we liked it because we didn't have to light so much because they had so much light blasting out the windows. It was almost like having, like movie lights. So it helped when we were shooting. And she, when she saw the fellow who was playing the cowboy, and his face now is all wrinkled and it's greenish, and he's wearing this tattered kind of, and this guy was tall and thin to begin with, and his eyes have like gray circles. And she's staring at him and staring at him and just standing there staring. And we shot out there for about 2 hours, different things right around that area. And she's staring at him, and we all started to notice that. This chick hasn't moved. And, is she like a hooker or what is she? And she's standing there just staring at him. So we finished and we said, okay, that's a wrap. We'll get everything. Well, she goes over, she grabs him by the arm and starts dragging him down the street. He's going, help, help. And now this guy was like about 6'3". She was about 5'2". And she's dragging him and dragging him. And he's going, help me, help me. So you know, we go down and like break her grip. She had a grip like iron on him, and we start taking him back. She runs up and grabs him again and starts wanting to drag him away. So we hailed a cab, and it's New York. They're like, we'll pick up a green guy in a Western outfit. We don't care. As long as you got the money for the fare. So cab pulls up. So I grab her to pull her away from him, and it's as if she had no weight. I almost threw her over my head. I just went, whoa! And I had her up over there, and I held her in the air. She jumped into the cab and takes off. I put her down. She doesn't say anything to me. She doesn't say, like, how dare you, or anything. She just looks at me and then looks longingly at the cab, and then just turns away and walks into the night. And I said, boy, I wish we had been filming that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't.
Wow.
But that was weird experiences on that. But I'd love to see something done with it before, because it got all this press at the time because it was so unique that he was doing this film through a college. A lot of the other teachers were not really behind it. They thought, oh, you're not following the regular curriculum. This isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great, and he had a lot of interesting people who came on and worked on that too. Boy, and I'd love to see the footage, and especially the episode with the cowboy, because that's really an unseen piece of work by him.
Yeah.
In the background.
Oh, you can see her briefly standing in the background, but I would have loved to see, me using her like a balloon, holding her up in the air, like,
Thinking like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, she might have floated away. I don't know.
Wow.
She was a ghost and like other ghosts.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been, yeah.
Well, hopefully we get to see that footage. That would be, and I'll reach out to him. I'm gonna, who am I? But I'm still gonna make an attempt and let him know, hey, there's more people that want to see this, and and try and help you get this footage released. That would be amazing. So, anything we can do to help.
And I mean, even when we were doing that at the at the Alamo Draft House with Dr. Butcher, even the audience started clapping like, yeah, we'd like to see that happen. But then there was no commitment from Roy. He just said, well, I'll have to think about it. And that was it. Then he left before the picture actually began. So I never even got to talk to him afterwards.
Yeah. So, well, I really appreciate you joining us for this and the amazing stories, and thank you very, very much. Yes, it was.
Yes, thank you so much.
It was very, very cool. So
it's always fun to talk about it. It's not fun to do it, but it's always fun to talk about it.
Yeah, at least reminisce.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll be back again with other great interviews. But this was our first, and it was very amazing. So again, Brendan and Robin, thank you very much.
Yes, very much appreciated.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.